Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. We are back again. I brought a special guest with me, Ryan Ward from Lakers Nation, and also host of one of the Believe podcasts for the Lakers. Jiggling, it's Jello Jiggling. My bad, I almost messed up. Jello Jiggling. If you want to check that out, definitely good show to check out if you are a fan of the NBA. If maybe the Lakers are your favorite team, secondary team, whatever. I'm assuming Laker fans will watch this pod. So definitely check that out if you haven't yet. Ryan, how are you today, man?
I'm good. Like I was saying, I'm just a little tired. I'm a little under the weather too, but I'm just glad the season's over, to be honest with you.
Listen, I know. I mean, you told me before we came on, you've been covering this team for a long time, and it feels like every Lakers season is a little exhausting to a certain extent.
Yeah. So, and you know what? The offseason could be just as bad too when it gets going.
Yeah.
Constant rumors, just never ends.
And probably, went up a notch when LeBron came too, when he came a few years ago. Yeah. We know what comes with that. So we're gonna get into all that in the show. Obviously, there's a connection between the two teams. That's why you're here right now. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the Lakers first because their season just ended to Denver in 5 games. I'd say it was a very competitive 5-game series. Series could have been easily 2-2 if Jamal Murray didn't hit that first game winner going back into game 5, but it wasn't that way. And you had a chance in game 5, and things happen, right? So now that season is over and you've had a couple of days to reflect on it, what is your overall takeaway from the Lakers season this past season?
Mediocre. I mean, they come in every year with championship aspirations, and that's always been a Lakers thing. I mean, they got 17 banners for a reason, and they got 2 of the best players in the league. So they came in hoping to win another title, and it just didn't go that way. I mean, they could blame it on injuries and all that stuff, but to be honest with you, I think it's one of those kind of changing eras kind of thing, right? Like where the young teams are starting to get really good. The older teams are struggling to keep up, right? So it's like how you got Minnesota to just kick the crap out of Phoenix, right, in the first round. Nobody saw that coming. I mean, I thought Minnesota was going to win, but I didn't think they were going to sweep them like that. That was embarrassing. And Dallas, OKC, sweeping the Pelicans. It's just teams like that are just they're skyrocketing, and all the older teams with all the older guys, Steph, KD, and LeBron, are just kind of struggling to keep up. So that's kind of the way the season went. It's just they couldn't contend with great teams, and they went up against arguably the best team in the league.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned Steph, KD, LeBron. People have been talking about that era is coming to an end soon. And is this the first realization, this playoffs, of that era coming to an end? Obviously, with Steph getting eliminated in the play-in, KD getting swept, LeBron losing in 5 games in the first round, not going far in the playoffs at all. And, for you guys especially, there's just been so much around the team. Obviously, the Lakers always have a lot of noise around the team. But this season is continued that trend. And one of the guys that were big in that is the head coach, Darvin Ham. I have seen Lakers Twitter. I have seen some of the comments they have made. They are not a fan of that man from everything I have gained.
I don't think there's one fan of him out there. Not one.
Yeah, it's not great, man. I mean, I've seen stuff. # down with the pork. I'm like, this is crazy.
Out with the pork? Is that what's there?
Down with the pork.
Wow.
I was like, wow, yeah. It gets pretty intense on there. But now that the season's over, obviously we had that article come out after Shams had that ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
He just ready about the season, what happened, the comment that people feel like is about D'Angelo Russell, the fact that it seems like this is the end, maybe. I don't know, 100%. We won't know until it actually happens. So I wanted to ask you about Darvin Ham and his 2 years there and covering the team, and just what are your thoughts of Darvin Ham? Was he in over his head? What went wrong? Just everything like that.
That saying, nice guys finish last? I think that's Darvin Ham. I think what I've noticed is nice guys don't last long in a Lakers coaching job. You got to be somewhat of an asshole. You got to have an edge about you. And the guys that they don't last long. Ham, Frank Vogel. And then they come out with the same, stuff every post game, and it just feels like it's on repeat. I mean, the guy's a cliche machine. It drives us crazy. Like when we gotta transcribe it because like he seriously say this again? Like, dude, come up with some new material. Like, show that you're trying to change things up. And it's like he had one game plan, and when that game plan didn't work, it was lost.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, people forget he's a first-time head coach, right? So that's kind of, I think, what you get with that. He's not going to be a Spoelstra. He's not going to be a Popovich. He's not going to be, so I'm trying to think of the other guy, great coaches in the league, like that OKC guy who I can't pronounce his damn name.
Mm-hmm.
And Finch, it's just like these other guys. He's not going to be that. So I wasn't surprised he flamed out. I think he got a little extra time because of the West Finals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was more of the same thing. It's just they went up against much better competition this time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, it's been pretty wild. I know a lot of people are waiting for that. Whenever that announcement comes,
I'm surprised it hasn't happened. I don't know what they're waiting for.
Well, it's weird. Leading up to it, there were I saw reports that he'll be safe regardless of what happens.
Like no matter what happens. That's what I heard. Yeah.
The season's over. It's like, oh, now he's on he might get fired, and it's like, do we know? But again, it's like I said, they say players have seemed to they're done with him.
Yeah.
And if you know that if you're Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, it's hard to just say we're going to run it back again with him.
Well, then you're alienating your guys immediately. Then what's LeBron's motivation to come back? He's like, I'm going to go through this again with this guy when I'm 40.
Yep.
Why would I do that to myself when there's probably other teams that are willing to? I know no other team can pay what the Lakers are going to pay, but the guy's a freaking billionaire. Like, what does it matter? You know what I mean? The guy could play for the minimum and still make more off the court than anybody on the court, right? Money's not motivating LeBron at this point, unless he's trying to build up his bank account enough to buy the Vegas franchise, if that happens, which almost certainly will happen, I bet. But I don't know that the franchise has had a lot of ups and downs ever since Dr. Buss died. Like a lot of ups and downs. But it seems like every time they kind of are on to something else happens and they start going down again. This is the biggest mess that I've seen it in. I'm trying to think of the last time. I mean, probably since the whole Jim Buss thing. Like, people are starting to really get on Jeannie Buss, and she's always been kind of like the beloved, owner. But now it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're not making much sense anymore. And people are calling her cheap and all that stuff. And I feel for it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe she shouldn't be calling the shots, and Pelinka should, hit the road. But that's why this offseason is going to be so crazy, because there's just so many things that could happen,
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, everybody's going to connect every player to the Lakers and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess before we get into the Hawks portion, one more thing that will lead us into it, D'Angelo Russell. He has been a very, polarizing player, I'd say, for you guys. He's had his moments of greatness, and you're like, if he plays like that, Lakers could have a high ceiling. And then you have moments where he just completely disappears.
What do you mean, 0 points? 0 points in the playoff game?
Exactly. So,
that might do it. That might, cook you.
Yeah, and now I believe he's an unrestricted free agent this offseason, or he has an option.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he's like LeBron. He has an option.
He has an option, and he says after the game, he said, "I have leverage." So I don't know how he's going to use that, and everything like that. So I guess from your gut feeling right now, do you think D'Lo will be on this roster next season?
No, I don't think so. I mean, what did he prove? I mean, regular season he had. It's like he didn't start playing until he was mentioned in trade rumors, and then he kicked in it like with Murray, right?
Mm.
and then he kicked it into high gear, and he was a stud for a while, like 2 months straight. And then the big question mark was, can he do that when it matters the most? And he showed, I think it was game 1 was a dud. Game 2, he played well.
Mm.
Game 3 was the 0 points, I believe. Yeah.
Mm.
And then game 4, I think he played decent. Like, honestly, I blacked out for game 5, so I don't remember.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so obviously you've been looking for an upgrade. He's been in rumors for a reason. He's been in trade rumors for that exact reason. And so that connects us to the Hawks. Obviously, Trae Young, there's been nothing confirmed that he's on the market, but people think that this year, this is the most likely if there is a chance to potentially acquire him.
Yeah.
Lakers have been connected. Trae is with Clutch. Obviously, that connection to LeBron, LA, everything like that. But earlier this season, there were talks for DeJounte, who's also a Clutch client. And so if the Lakers are looking to upgrade at the point guard position, the Hawks have 2 players that they could definitely look at. I don't know if you can tell me anything that maybe nobody else has reported, but going back to the DeJounte midseason conversations, was that close at all potentially happening?
It seemed like it. It almost seemed inevitable. But I guess that's kind of what happens with the Lakers, right? Like, you hear all this smoke, and then at the very end, there was no fire in the first place. And you're like, well, what the hell was going on, But then again, there's a lot of like I think Austin Reeves is the one mentioned a lot in that trade, right? And they want to hold on to him, but now it seems like he'd be the guy that they would push out first. You know what I mean? Let D'Lo walk and trade Austin, because he's like really the only really attractive trade piece, and he's not even that attractive, right? I mean, I don't know if you compare the two, Murray and Reeves, because you've watched more Murray than I have, but he didn't really show up in the playoffs either. He wasn't great. He had a great game 5 in terms of hitting some shots to keep him in the game, but I mean, his stats weren't blowing you away. It's like on my pod, I was saying that the one thing that makes Denver so damn good is they have those 3 guys that can kill you every single night, right? Porter, Jokic, and Murray. And then they have the other guys, Gordon, who can come up big, and KCP, who come up big. And then you look at the Lakers, and they got 2 guys that can do that, and then they're constantly looking for that third, and they never find him. Or they get him for 1 game, but they can't get him for 4 in a row, right? So I don't know, man. It seems inevitable again that they're going to do this because they have to convince LeBron to stay, right? And he's not going to stay the way it's currently constructed. There's no way. As much as he loves Reeves and stuff, and I just think they're going to have to make a big splash, whether it's Trae or Donovan Mitchell or somebody else that comes out of nowhere. I think DeJounte is off the table. I don't think they're going to go after him again. But who knows? This stuff changes like the wind blows. So it wouldn't shock me either if they went back to that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, I remember recently seeing I think somebody said, Sham said it, like a package if it was going to be Trae, starting with Reeves, and obviously the picks that Lakers have left for the rest of this decade. Yeah. And I said that I would pick up the phone if that was it. I just, you're giving up Trae, star player, like that doesn't feel like a lot. And I think that's one of the biggest things that when people think about the Lakers making a move like that, people are just thinking, what do you have that we want? If it's not AD in the trade,
right.
like what do you have?
Well, that could be a lot of what happens this summer, right? Like the Lakers may think, hey, look, we have enough to get a guy without giving up our 2 big guys. Well, they can't even trade LeBron, right? Because I guarantee LeBron's opting out and getting 2 or 3 more years, right? So he's not even a tradable asset until he signs, and then you're not going to just trade him. So it's every team might just be like, hey, it's AD or it's a non-starter, right? Like, why not? And especially when you got other teams like New York and San Antonio who have way more assets than the Lakers. They come in there, hey, look, this is what we have, and it's way more than LA. Why are you just going to ship him off to LA? Even though I'm sure Trae, if he had his choice, he'd want to go to LA rather than San Antonio, or well, I don't know about New York, but he plays well in New York, doesn't
he? Yes, sir.
he?
They still be barking. They be still saying his name randomly during sporting events up there.
Yeah.
It never ends.
But him and Brunson don't make any sense, right? Why would you put them on the same team?
Yeah. You're basically doing what the Hawks just did this past offseason, or the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
With the point guard look.
Yeah.
And that
what do you think now? Like, you've seen the whole Trae experience and then the whole Trae Murray experience. What do you, are they done? Like should they move on from him? Will they move on from him?
I think they will, just because one of the biggest issues the Hawks have is their point of attack defense is god awful. And it's just because that you have 2 guards. Like, DeJounte can, I feel like if he's playing his natural position, is a fine defender, but he's not 2. He should not be defending 2s, because then that could lead to him defending 3s. I still remember a couple of years ago, DeAndre Hunter was out. And at the end of the game, they had to put DeJounte Murray on LeBron. You don't want that. So it was one of those things where it's just, I don't think it'll work for the overall defense of the team. Offensively, they were great, and you'll get that from an offensive perspective. Murray was clutch. Murray did what he was supposed to do from that perspective, but it just really hurt us defensively. So I feel like they have to move one of them off the team and try to just first have the roster construction better and roster balance better, instead of having 2 point guards running the show. Realistically, that's one reason why in like the midseason rumors, they were talking about D'Lo in the trade, and they were like, well, the Hawks don't want D'Lo. Like, I understand, like Trae and D'Lo, like, that wouldn't make any sense.
No.
So I think.
I mean, you think AD kind of would be perfect over there, right? Like, I don't think you'd win a title per se, but you'd be a hell of a lot better, especially in the East. I bet you'd be middle of the pack, maybe even challenging the top teams. I don't know.
I mean, the way the Eastern Conference is this season, it's wide open outside of Boston. So I mean, it's
like night and day when you look at the 2 conferences. It's kind of sickening, actually. You know, it's pretty bad.
But it was one of those things where I just feel like if they make the move, it just has to be for that reason. And then you got to find the right player to put next to him. You can't just put anybody there. Trae, you have to have very particular people around him. And I think the front office has to realize that. And they can't just like put anybody. I think at that time when they made that trade, he was probably their most available option for them at that time that they could realistically get. Yeah. And so they made the move. Didn't work out. It happens. Now you have to be able to revisit it. Okay, what have we learned? What can we improve? Luckily, Jalen Johnson has emerged.
Yeah.
That's been big.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to be, they think they're already, the Hawks and Jalen are already going to start talking this offseason about a potential contract. Again, because
second year?
He's in, this is his, he just completed his 3rd year.
Oh, wow.
So, and again, he's a clinch client. So,
who isn't these days? Jeez.
So
you know what? That's another element to it, right? It's I don't think the Lakers want to piss off Clutch in any sense, because there's just so many Clutch clients out there, and they'll have to inevitably deal with them again at some point. So it's like it's a very, like, LeBron and Rich Paul have really worked it masterful in LA, to where they could just kind of control what happens. But I think that's why everything's kind of gone off the rails. It's because there has been too much control given to Clutch and what LeBron wants to do. I mean, the whole Westbrook thing still baffles me. What the hell were you thinking? That made no sense then. It makes even more nonsense now. Like, I don't get it. And I think trading for Trae would be a mistake. I don't see that moving the needle. I mean, maybe Trae's better off as a 3, maybe. But I don't know if I would risk it, because if it doesn't work next season, they're going to blow it up. They have to, right? What are they going to do? Like 41-year-old LeBron? I mean, at some point he's going to break down, even though people think that's, they don't want to admit that. It's the truth. It's just Father Time's undefeated, right? He creeps up on your ass when you don't expect it.
Well, I think the infatuation with the Trae Laker pairing is just, obviously, like I said, you had D'Lo last couple of years, and you're like, well, he's better than D'Lo. So in terms of someone who could consistently show up, I mean, like I said, last time Trae was in the playoffs, last 4 games against Boston, he was incredible. The 2021 run, he was great. Like, so he has evidence of like he'll show up. And like you said, maybe him being a third option could be ideal, and obviously we know about his passing. That'll probably help AD more than anybody.
Yeah,
just
true.
Just because of that, can run more pick and roll and things of that nature. So I think that's why a lot of people love the fit, because they feel like, okay, now you have that third legit star that can go with the 2 stars, and then you can maybe compete. But I've said one thing you got to think about is look at the Suns. You have 3 stars.
Didn't do
That
anything.
I don't think the league is what it was when the Big 3 was formed in Miami,
No.
where you could have that stacked roster, have okay-ish to not good depth, and win.
Even the Lakers this year, perfect example. When AD and LeBron got together, everybody was terrified, right? These guys are going to dominate for 5 years straight or whatever, and it's not even close to what happened.
Yeah,
one title in the bubble, huh?
I was going to say, how do you feel about the bubble championship?
No, it's a title, but it's like there's just always going to be question marks around it. Some people say it's the easiest that they've ever played, and others, couldn't handle it. Like who was the guy who blew up in the bubble, and everybody's like, oh my god, this guy's a star now.
TJ Warren.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, didn't he score like 50 or something? And
yeah, he was hooping. He was unbelievable.
Yeah. Some people flourish when there's nobody watching, and then there was when everybody's watching, they shrink. So, and especially in LA. LA's got that appeal. I remember when Dwight came from Orlando, and I was thinking, oh, it's on, right? He couldn't play in the big lights. He's fine in Orlando, a small market. He comes to LA and he's just a totally different guy. And then he had to deal with Kobe on top of that, who was on him all the time. And he just he didn't have the mentality for it.
Well, I've heard some Laker fans say that they kind of wish they hung on to that championship team more.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, they were good because they were long, athletic, and AD was who you wanted him to be. It makes no sense why they blew it up. Like letting Caruso go, KCP. I mean, all these guys have flourished elsewhere. And it even goes back before that. Like before the AD trade, you had guys like Josh Hart, Larry Nance Jr. You had all these guys who are perfect glue guys, role player guys who are flourishing on these other teams. Like Josh Hart's like invaluable in New York now, right? He's a guy. He's not a star, but he's a guy, and you need those guys to win. KCP in Denver, same thing. He's a guy. He's not a star, but he's a guy. And the Lakers just gave up a bunch of those guys. Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle. They were all considered like borderline stars that were never going to get to that point. But what they didn't realize is they had that right group. They just needed the star in the middle. But once LeBron got there, and then he had the hamstring thing on Christmas Day, it kind of just derailed that whole chance of that actually working. And they got impatient, and then they went after AD. I mean, it worked. It worked. One title works, but I mean, I think it's going to be one of those things. Once this era is over, and you're like 2 years down the line, and you look back and you go, that kind of sucked. That kind of wasn't great, right? Like we had, was it 6 years, one championship, and it was constantly AD's health, LeBron's health, and the rest of the team's health. And it's like I heard LeBron saying this in this exit interview. He's like, we were never whole, or when we were whole, it was only for a little bit. I'm like, dude, you say that every single year. Every team is dealing with the same thing. You had AD play 76 games. He's never played. He's played 75 twice before this season. He was determined to play as much as possible. You got your guy there, man. And and LeBron was relatively healthy for the whole year. I can't remember how many games he played, but I know it was more than normal. At least for his Lakers stint. So you can't lean on that excuse. You just can't, because look at all the injuries in the playoffs right now. Look at Milwaukee. Like, geez. Even though they're hanging in there somehow. I don't know how that's maybe it's just the Pacers aren't that good, but
hey, man, I could get into that. The Tyrese Halliburton agenda.
Yeah, he disappeared over the second half of the season, right?
Yeah.
which is a
But
bummer.
it's interesting. But I want to go back to a point you made earlier. You said
Hmm.
that you don't feel like the Lakers are going to revisit the DeJounte Murray thing. Is there any particular feeling why that is? Is it
Star
just kind of like we
power.
did it and it's like,
No, I think that discussion already happened for one, and then the star power for two. They need a home run.
mm,
That's how they think, right? They think of what does this look like in the headlines, and like how much money can we make off of this, jersey sales and stuff. I think a lot more financial aspect of it goes into these decisions rather than does it make sense on the basketball court. It's like Westbrook, like I said, that still makes no sense. But I'm sure they sold a lot of jerseys, right? And the same thing's going to happen with Trae Young. Even if he flames out, guarantee you're going to see Trae Young jerseys in the stands, right? He's
mm,
another star. Everybody knows his name. He's a household guy. Not everybody knows DeJounte Murray, right? I didn't even know how to spell his name until the trade rumors came up, and I had to write it 100 times. I'm dead serious. I didn't know.
I get that. I get that. I was just, it was just interesting because, like, you know, again, with that being circled, the backcourt in some form or fashion being circled as the place of upgrade for the Lakers.
Mhm.
Obviously, like I said, rumors are going to run rampant. I even seen a Lakers Cade Cunningham rumor.
Oh
So
no, please no,
they said somebody
no,
was like,
man.
I think somebody just said they need to go after Cade because he fits everything they need.
The injury report, yeah, he fits that. He'll slide in there with whoever leaves.
God damn.
Cam
So
Reddish, okay, here's Cade right there.
yeah, I mean, what was interesting too about the Lakers too is that, like, there's some decent players that work. It just feels like with the injuries and then Darvin and like you said, the LeBron effect that has kind of like muddied everything. Um, even in those trade talks earlier, they were. I think one of the big things they were doing for DeJounte was like, oh, they're trying to like maybe package like a Clint or a DeAndre Hunter. And I'm assuming
Mhm.
you guys would not have interest in either player. Maybe Clint if you needed
Well,
another center,
Clint
but
actually would have made sense, right, to back up AD. I think
okay.
that's one of the big things. Like there wasn't really. He had Jackson Hayes who couldn't really do much but dunk,
Mm,
right? He
mm,
was nothing but a lob threat and not a very good defender at all. Um, I think one thing I think they really, I wouldn't say dropped the ball on, but they tried but didn't work, was Nas Reed. The
mm,
Nas Reed was the top target for the Lakers going into the offseason. And I think Minnesota knew that. So they signed him as fast as they possibly could, right? And
mm.
then he didn't go anywhere. And look what he did.
Yep.
He would have been perfect. He would have been perfect. I mean, I think the Lakers would have been a really good team with him. As currently considered, just him. Add him, take out, say, I don't know, Torian Prince, or
Mm,
even, well, it couldn't be just Jackson Hayes, but you know what I'm saying, right? If you
yeah.
you add him in there, or Rui, take out Rui, put him in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too. I remember the rumor before the play-in started. They were talking about should you guys lose that Pelicans game to avoid Denver, because I mean, obviously Oklahoma City's a young team and you guys are experienced, and people believe like that could maybe make a difference in a series like that. Were you kind of, obviously you're never gonna be like, yeah, they should like maybe choke a game away, but like, do you feel like maybe if they face Oklahoma City, could it be a different story? And then it's like, obviously, we don't know what the season would be right now, but maybe things would be different. Things would be viewed differently if that happened. Because I mean, Zion, they were lead. I think they just got the lead when Zion was like on fire. Then he got hurt, and then you guys took it.
yeah, that
So
40-point game, and then he couldn't finish it. Yeah,
yeah,
and that was it. I mean, it's always a thought in the back of your head, but the thing is, I think you start doing that, and it messes with your mentality, right?
mhm,
Because then people would just be like, "Oh, what if they lose to OKC?" And be like, "Oh, well, they ducked these guys to get to these guys, and the same result happened, or
mhm,
worse." I mean, look at OKC; they proved to be legit against New Orleans. I mean, that could change in the next series. They're facing what? Whoever wins,
the
Clippers,
Mavs Clippers
Mavs.
series. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you'll know for sure if they're the real deal. But they look pretty good to me.
Mhm.
Um, and nobody on the Lakers can stay in front of Shea. There's no way. That guy is going to cook him every night, and they They stretch the floor well. They play defense. I think they match up pretty well, but I think everybody was leaning on that inexperience thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, hey, let's take the inexperienced guys over the defending champs. And I get it, but I just think that goes against everything that's great about sports. You want to face the best team. You want to, see where you match up, or if you could contend with these guys. Because if you think of it this way, if the Lakers pulled off that series win against Denver, the whole narrative changes immediately, right? Oh my God, the Lakers, right? And it's on every freaking talk show. Like everybody's talking about it. That builds them up. Say they beat the next guys, then who's going to stand in their way? Like, say they beat Minnesota. Um, that's the thing about the charm of the Lakers, I think, is all it takes is one series win or one win here or there, and the whole narrative shifts, right?
Mhm.
And everybody runs with it. Everybody runs with it because that's what they do with the Lakers, because the Lakers make money. They make
Yeah.
everybody money.
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, it was just interesting seeing that 'cause I was just like, again, even if you lose the Pelicans, well, what if you don't? I think it was you would face the Kings. What if you don't beat the Kings?
exactly. When
Then it's
the Kings had the Lakers number too. The Kings kicked the crap out of them like was it 3 out of 4 times, or it might have been a sweep. I don't remember, but I was like, why? Yeah, why are you going to avoid it for another team that's got your number? That doesn't. They're not as good, obviously, but it just doesn't make sense. And if you're trying to conserve health and everything, you're going to add another game that doesn't technically count on your thing. I just that whole, because it messes with your head, and I think that in sports you got to be thinking, you got to be totally focused, and anything like that comes into play can really screw you up. I mean, I don't think veteran teams get into that too much, but you never know. I mean, and then it's just, I mean, it all turned out pretty much the way it was going to go anyway, right?
Yeah, and then now they're at home and everything like that, and that's kind of how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But I guess one thing that's interesting with the Lakers right now is, like you said, all the stuff that's going to happen this offseason. But do you see first? Is there a preferred, if Darvingham is indeed fired? Is there a type of coach you feel like they have to get if they're going to run it back with LeBron and AD, and then whatever roster changes next year that you think could benefit them? Or is it past just the coach?
I just don't know, man. I don't, because they keep bringing in these guys who are. I mean, Vogel was pretty good. I think they did him dirty. He might have been the best coach that they had for this era, but I mean, he won them championship too. So I just don't see that guy, because it always turns out the same way. It's always like, they did LeBron wrong, or they did AD wrong, or he's a fall guy. It's like you're hiring a fall guy every time, unless he's an established coach, because there's only a handful, right? And those guys don't leave their jobs anymore, because I mean, I think coaching is the worst job in sports. Outside of refing, right? And refs don't get fired. Coaches get fired every year. Why the hell would you want to be a coach? You get all the pressure. You're the fall guy for everything, especially on a team with huge superstars. You got to have a huge. You know who it would be, actually. I just hit me. What's his face? From Houston, Ime Udoka. He would be perfect. He has the mentality to bite back at these guys and earn their respect. And he seems to have done that wherever he's gone. I mean, I can't believe how quickly he turned around Houston. And then I'm not saying that they're, they completely turned around, but they're way better than anybody expected them to be as fast as they were. And I think that's a testament to him. Players just want to, run through a wall for him. But then again, if his off the court stuff goes haywire again, it's not going to go well in LA.
With him out there in the LA streets.
Yeah. You're going to have to put some rules in place just for him.
And the jokes write themselves with that one, man. The jokes write themselves. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that would. I mean, obviously, that would be the first big thing. Obviously, before looking at players in a scene. Now, you also mentioned, with Trae, if that ended up happening, that you're not 100% sure if that would get them where they wanted to go. Obviously,
I
we
don't think it
acknowledge
would.
he would have better than D'Lo, but like, I guess what would you if that happened? What would you expect from Trae? Just because he's been a ball dominant guy, now he's going into like has to learn how to play with LeBron. Has to, I think he could use AD effectively, but the LeBron Trae combo, how
Well,
would that?
the sad part is he'll be under the most pressure, and he'll be the third player, right? So everything that he does is going to be scrutinized. Every off game that he has is going to be scrutinized. Hey, we traded all these guys for this dude. It's a really tough position to be in, and I think that's the way it always is. It's like Kevin Love on the Cavs, right? Like he came in and everybody's like, "Oh my God, what the key piece!" And then he just got thrashed, and then it screwed up, with his mental health kind of went sideways, and you got to be built a certain way. And maybe Trae is, I don't know. Maybe that's the kind of environment he needs to be in to flourish. But I just don't see it happening because I feel like the Lakers are banging their heads against the wall and hoping to break through at some point, and it's just not going to happen, right? It's just you're just doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not learning your lesson. I honestly think the best thing that they can do is just overhaul the whole thing. And that's not going to be a popular opinion because everybody wants to be competitive, but at some point you have to do that. And I think the only way that's going to happen is if LeBron willingly leaves, right? Which everybody's, speculating that's not going to be the case, but he did leave the door open for that pretty wide, saying, not committing on that last question. I've never seen him hesitate that much on a question before. He really didn't know how to answer it. And then he reiterated it on Twitter, right? He said, this is the truth, and I really don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe it depends on Bronny, what Bronny's going to do.
That has been a big connection, Bronny, even though they said that that's not a priority for LeBron anymore. Now, he hasn't said it, but the report is that that's not a priority anymore, and they're worried about just making sure he's in the right developmental system. And I'm smelling like from you don't think the Lakers would be the greatest developmental system for him to go.
Well, I always say this: say they bring him in, right? They draft him. He's last guy on the bench or whatever. How long until that becomes a hostile environment because LeBron is trying to get his kid on the floor, and he's not very good, right? Or if he gets on the floor, he proves that he's not very good, but LeBron keeps pushing for it because that's what dads do. And he's going to alienate his teammates. He's going to piss off the front office. I just see disaster happening if they do that. First of all, you're going to force this kid in there when LeBron's already like on the tail end of his career. What are you doing? I mean, the kid's not a game changer. Are you only doing it just to extend this LeBron thing for a little bit longer? I don't get the logic. I really don't. If he was good, if he was really good, then I'd be like, okay, cool. Or if he really excelled at something. But there was a report somebody said, oh, he's an NBA defender or something. And I just went,
they say NBA defender. They said he can lock him down.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? I've never even heard that as a description for any player ever. Oh, he can guard NBA players. Oh, fantastic. What's he going to do when he has the ball in his hands? The kid's not even big. He's like 6'4" or 6'3" or something, He's got to handle the ball, or at least be a shooter. I just it's baffling because I really never seen somebody. I mean, Kobe had a lot of control over the Lakers when he was here, and in the tail end of his years, it felt like it did hinder a lot of the things the Lakers did, and it feels similar this way, but a little bit worse because they do have that little ray of hope, right, that they could still do something. But I think it's false hope because the league's too good at this point. They need a real game changer to be that third guy. Maybe
Okay.
Trae's that guy. Maybe he's not. I don't know. But
Well, what's interesting is that you mentioned them overhauling it. That would be what you would do. Now, in saying that, does that mean also AD on the block, or is he the
probably.
person and then you're just changing everything else around him?
Yeah, you'd probably have to. Because, I mean, I would think if LeBron walks, AD's going to be like, what am I doing here?
Hmm.
I've always wanted to play in my hometown of Chicago. Like, just send me over there, you know, or
Hmm.
somewhere else, you know. He's not going to be here for a losing situation, and all the pressure's on him all of a sudden. Even though he's had a lot of the pressure while LeBron's
Hmm.
been here, it's just going to be worse. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a domino effect, though. That's for sure. LeBron opts in, and then you're just going to see all the dominoes go one way rather than the other, and or if he walks, the other way. I don't know, man. I'm exhausted just thinking about it, to be honest.
Yeah, trust me, I get it. Listen, after our season, it was the way our season ended. It's there's just like it's funny hearing what you're saying about your front office, your team. I don't know actively how much Trae is involved in that. It seems like Trae's just doing his own thing, and then he's letting the front office do it, especially based off the moves we've made,
Yeah,
which Hawks fans will just criticize. And Landry is just, you know, he's under some pressure. Like Trae went on his podcast yesterday and was like, "Listen, I want to win. I want to be in Atlanta, but I want to win." You know, and so for us, one of the things I've hated about Landry is that he's not transparent about what the expectations are for the team. I feel like we kind of guess what they are. Oh, well, it looks like we're going to compete, but then it's like he won't say that, and then some moves we won't reflect that.
because he doesn't know. I mean, I think that's what GMs, they have to be purposely vague, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen in the offseason, what moves going to make, what players want to do, how this playoffs pans out, and how that
Mhm.
impacts everything. Um, it's got to be a really tough job. I remember Mitch Kupchak was really frustrating as a Lakers fan, right? Because he would
Mhm.
be totally vague about everything. He wouldn't give you anything, right? And Plank is a little like that, but I get the sense that if Planka was really onto something, he wouldn't be able to help himself. He'd want the credit so bad that he would
Mhm.
spit it out, right? It's like he did that recently, or I think it was before the season, where everybody's praising the Lakers for all the moves that they made. And Palenka's in there at the press conference, and he's egging on more questions. I'm like, this is weird. We're all like, this is weird. This guy
He's
wants the
like, I
credit
want more
so
credit.
bad. Yeah. Come on, tell me how great I am. Come on, please.
I mean, listen, Palinka's made some good moves. I mean, trade deadline seems to be his bread and butter. He'll frustrate you when the season starts. At the trade, he'll revamp some things. I was like, all right, Lakers in a better position and stuff
I
like that.
can't I can't ever forgive him for the Westbrook thing. I just can't.
Yeah, that would, like you said, they want a home run.
Yeah.
That's what they
His
want.
his Westbrook thing is like Kupchak signing what was his name? Mozgov
Timothy
at,
Mozgov.
at the beginning of free agency. It was the same thing. It's like, what are you doing? Is there any logic to this move at all? It's like, no, somebody just told me to do it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, thanks.
I mean, it's like I said, it's funny just seeing the comparisons and stuff like that. But it's also interesting to see it's interesting to see your standpoint of just where you think this team is, and you're just like, listen, we may just need to accept what it is. There's no reason like, but I always feel like, and you've said it early too. It just feels like with the Lakers, everybody, all national media believes they get the couple of things, they're going to compete for a championship. They're going to be in the race. They're in the top 5 for titles every year. And it's like, do y'all really believe that? Or is it just because you guys
No,
ratings, it's going to bring
that's it.
viewers, the
That's it.
Lakers?
That is it.
It's just like, man.
That's it, dude. It's sad, but that's the way it goes. I mean, even when the tail end of the Kobe era, where they were just terrible,
Mhm.
it was the same thing. They were still leading ESPN and stuff with crazy trade talk, and it's like, dude, they're not going anywhere. What the hell are you talking about? Like, if
Mhm.
you're paying attention, that it tells you right there, right in front of your face. I mean, just the way that Denver played them off the floor, even though they were competitive for a lot of that series, Denver was clearly the better team in all aspects of the game. Denver was missing shots left and right, and they still fought their way back into the game every time. It's like, dude, that's so obvious that this team has got some serious problems.
Led in every first, I think they led at the end of at the beginning of every half, like every first half they had a lead.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is with Denver, it's just them. I've always said they're so balanced as a team, roster construction wise, and then they play so consistently. They don't. I feel like like most teams, you have like even the Lakers, you have ups and downs. They're great, and then they're like, they're off. Denver's just like consistent, and then they might go a little, and then they'll go here, but they're never like up and down, and that's why it's hard.
I was comparing them to like a puzzle, right? Like every puzzle piece is different shape, but it fits in perfectly, right? Like it just there's no gaps, there's no holes, there's no like one's hanging off. Whereas the Lakers, it's like glued together by these two giant pieces and all these other pieces trying to hang on. It just doesn't work when you're trying to face somebody that's in a well-oiled machine with no egos. There's no egos over there. Like Jokic could care less. Like Murray may be a little bit more chatty, and Porter never says anything. KCP doesn't say anything. They just do their job, and they know that they're good at their job. That's it.
Yeah,
and it works.
Especially with Jamal. I know those 2-game winners. It's like, especially the second one. I know people were dissecting the play, and it's just like, how do y'all let him just get to his spot? No resistance.
Yeah.
And then he knocks it down. It's just like you're losing to a guy who has an injured calf. I mean, it
didn't even look like he was hurt, right? Like there was no signs of him limping or anything. Not that I saw anyway. I kept looking for it.
There was one. He made a layup, and then they called timeout, and he had to pull himself up. Like he didn't pull himself, but he had to stop himself, and he kind of seemed like, all right, hold on. But then he was fine after that. But for the most part, he pretty much was. You wouldn't think.
Same guy. Yeah. Well, like I said on my pod today, I was like, just imagine if he didn't play that game. This series would probably still be going, right?
Yeah. And then everybody's like, Lakers making the 3-1 comeback. They're actually they are down 3-0. Yeah, they're going to be making the comeback, the historic comeback.
NBA history, yeah. It's just crazy. I mean, that's playoffs though. That's things change that quickly, but didn't for them.
For sure, man. But man, I really appreciate this conversation, man. It's been really good talking to you, man, for sure. Like I said, wanted to link up with you and see how things go. Obviously, we'll see how the offseason goes and see what it turns into. So we may have to bring you back in the future if something does happen.
I would say our team's going to be connected for the next few months.
Oh, the rumor's about to go crazy. But yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Let people know where they can find you, man.
Find me everywhere. The same tagline, Ryan Ward LA. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube that I'm trying to get going again. TikTok, but I never upload anything on there anymore. Can't keep up with all that, man. It's too much. But yeah, and then Jello Jiggling podcast, which is 16 episodes in. So
yes, sir. And listen, y'all need to tune in. Like I said, if you're a fan of the game and you like listening to basketball pods, definitely listen to Ryan for sure, man. Show him some love. Definitely, man.
Thanks,
just I believe was able to bring you in, man. Say we need people with your credentials, of your stature. But yeah, so listen, and you guys know where to find me, Bryce_2K, across all social media. Obviously, listen to the audio, leave a review or a rating. Listen to us on YouTube, subscribe and like the video for show. Like I said, follow Ryan on all his social platforms as well. And we'll see what happens as this offseason continues to evolve. But we got to get through the NBA playoffs first before we really get to the heat of everything. So, like I said, Ryan, appreciate you coming on. This was your Believe in Hawks episode podcast. See you next time.